Sup, y'all? I'm your host, Taylor Onion, and this is Hang Time. We're back this week with Malik Fair from Parity, which is a company focused on equity and sponsorships for women athletes, brands, fans, you name it. They're trying to bridge some of the gaps that are out there right now. Malik, welcome. Good to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation today. So Malik, we go back I think at least 4 years, right? We used to work at Game Plan
Yeah.
together and have had a couple other opportunities, both of us since then. But it's good to, like I said, good to have you on, good to connect today.
Yeah, finally come full circle. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. So tell us, let's start off maybe kind of an overview of Parity from your viewpoint and then all the things, right? How long have you been there? What drew you to the role? All this stuff.
Yeah, so if for people unfamiliar with Parity, we were founded in 2020 by minority executives who kind of recognize the systematic pay disparity in professional sports, hence that word parity. And so they saw an opportunity to create something meaningful through change through innovative marketing approaches. We're a sports and marketing platform dedicated to professional women athletes and women's sports. We built a community of close to 1,200 professional women athletes, over 81 sport disciplines. I didn't even know there were 81 sport disciplines, but we have over
Right.
81 in 27 countries. And basically, we started this, our founder started this company as a response to data showing that women athletes only receive about less than 1% of sponsorship dollars, which is, yeah, disheartening me here, right? And they say out
Right.
loud. So they saw a gap, saw a need, and tried to make a change.
Awesome. And you've been there for how long now?
Yeah, so I started Parody a year and now 3 months ago, and time is flying. It's been probably the most rewarding, fulfilling year that I've had career wise as well as personally. In my role at Parody, I'm a key account executive. So my day to day consists of talking to brands and different sponsors in regards to what their needs for are in the women's sports space. And so that's anything from developing strategic campaign frameworks to connecting athletes with aligned brand opportunities. And a lot of data analysis also goes into demonstrating like the campaign impact of actually working with women athletes, the fan base and how it's different, and just showing that the passion for women's sports is really there. And what kind of drew me to Parity is that passion for advancing that gender equity. Minority myself, I've always had a passion for the underrepresented. So I saw this come about, and quick funny story when I first saw this role. It was a former teammate. I ran track and field in college. I always tell people track and field is one of the few sports that like men and women like we participate together. We have the
Mm,
same coach, we ride the same bus, we do the same track meets. It's almost you're one team, right? But instantly there's a disparity that you can see, right? Our women's team was way greater than our men's, but yeah, we reaped a lot of those benefits. So this opportunity coming back around, a decade later to age myself, but come back around and I was like, that's very interesting. I reached out directly and was just like, hey, I love everything you guys do, but with all due respect, like, do you hire men? Her reply was like, yeah, like we need allies. So, from there, put my hat in and yeah, it's been great ever since.
yeah. Well, on that note, you are the first male ally, male champion on Hang Time. So obviously excited about that as well. So even more full circle.
Okay, we love that. Love that.
So I want to take a deep dive. So a couple weeks ago, I saw y'all had partnered with Caroline Fitzgerald, who has goals, and came out with some info you'd released. I think it was either a study or a press release, something kind of just generally on the business state of women's sports. And so a few of the numbers from that report really stood out to me. You touched on a couple of them, but the things in my mind. So 58% of female athletes are earning less than $58,000, which is when you think of a pro athlete, you're thinking of
Yeah.
somebody who's raking it in, which is crazy. The other one was that the Denver Nuggets mascot is making $625,000 annually, and the top WNBA salaries are in the range of 241 to 252, $252,000. So to have that be almost three times the mascot of the Denver Nuggets, I'm like, did I choose the wrong? I mean,
Yeah, that's the same thing. I should have
right.
like jumping off a trampoline better, right? I think
I know. And now that I know that, I'm like, do I take a pivot? Is this the time? But and then the last piece that really stood out to me was The NFL's salary cap is $279 million, while the NWSL is 3.3 million, and the WNBA is 1.57 million. I think we've seen in the last year, especially with the rookie class that was in the WNBA, the 2024 class has really kind of shed light on some of the disparities with the WNBA and the salary cap and restrictions that exist there. But to see all of those things, in consecutive order to come out in a report is just insane. So I guess initially your thoughts on, obviously you're in it, you're in the weeds on that stuff, so probably not a surprise to you, but would love to get your initial thoughts on some of that information that came out.
Yeah, no, even being in the weeds in the work, it's still a surprise, right? Like you would think that the massive growth and, Deloitte, projecting women's sports being the next, billion-dollar industry, and then even in 2020, the 5 and 2026 projections that growing that things would already be in place, but they're not. There's still so much, so much, so much, so much room to grow. And another part about parity is a lot of our research and things we do is very data driven. And we take that data driven approach to ROI and ROO for brands investing in women athletes to really show them. One stat we partnered with Survey Monkey, and it was a part of what Caroline was talking about. We surveyed about 15,000 fans, and then one of the starking like things out of that was that people said about 80% of these people said women athletes were more influential role models than whether it was male athletes or just male or women influencers in general. And so it's a new fan base that's really gravitating to the boom of women's sports, and brands are slowly catching on. I think there are brands that obviously get it. There's brands that are interested. There's, unfortunately, brands that don't get it or don't care to get it, and still kind of see women's sports as that good charity arm or that DEI piece. And it's safe to say they're lacking behind, right? Things are moving, and it is big business, and actually is good business. And it's a cliche saying, but men lie, women lie. The numbers don't. But yeah, I see those numbers all the time, right? Like the fact that I go to different places and I know many more people that make way more money than Caitlin Clark's salary, right? And
Right.
that should be crazy. She's one of the most recognizable people on the planet Earth right now.
Right.
And so, yeah, those salaries and even the mascots, and it gets even deeper than that. We just pushed out a survey just on the state of women's sports and just how stressed some of these athletes are, right? And like we're talking about major sports, we're talking about the WNBA and NWSL, and they have media rights. But what about some of these Olympians? What about Paralympians? What about these volleyball players? What about leagues that are very even more underrepresented tenfold? And so some of these sponsorship dollars that we're trying to funnel to them are life changing. Um, and yeah, it's all meaningful work.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to House of Mar, Alona Mar and her sisters, the
Yeah,
new podcast they've got out, and she's talking about, part of her, like, what she really would love to do, obviously, is just to be able to play rugby and not have to worry about any of this other stuff. But the other stuff is where the money comes in. And so she's like constantly, I'm thinking, oh, if I wasn't playing rugby, I would have more opportunities to make more money. So it's just this, constant kind of fight, I feel like, for women athletes specifically, that most pro, of course, there's some male athletes, the ones who are playing, maybe not the footballs, not the basketballs. Certainly, minor league players. We've heard struggles of minor league players for years, and even folks who go overseas to play. But I think the prevalence of this issue and the disparity, obviously, of it exists in women's sports so much more. So, what are some of the specific ways that Parity is trying to help close those gaps?
yeah, definitely. And we do it in various different ways. I love having these conversations with people because they're just like, how can like what does parity do? And I'm just like, think women's sports. Like we do it. We help activate. But kind of what the approach I was saying, data driven approaches, right? Like no longer going to and we're not in the business of just logo slapping. I think that's also been kind of some of the issues in women's
Mm,
sports branding and sponsorships, which we can see are inauthentic and they don't last long. So that data-driven approach of demonstrating how this ROI of how using authentic story and authentic ambassador can really help. And then creating turnkey solutions for brands. I think that's one of the leverages to parity. It's helping brands just being able to activate on the fly. We live in a digital, cultural, relevant world, and as things navigate very fluid, I mean, the bigger the brand, it's harder for them to do so, right? So I think we have a cool approach with the large community we have and the creativeness that we get with them, with the athletes, to really activate on the fly and make it turnkey for a brand. And then the way that we partner with them, it's really about how to make the impactful campaigns work, or which brands, we work with. Some of them are challenger brands, right? They're seeking those authentic brand ambassadors that disrupt the industry. Work with everyone from consumer product brands to athletic leisure fit brands. But you name it, we can work with them. It all depends on one, the story we're trying to tell, and how authentic we can find that perfect athlete for them.
Do you, I guess, in the turnkey solution, so I'm thinking about that from a real estate standpoint, right? Like that's where the phrase comes from. If a house is turnkey, a rental is turnkey, somebody can literally turn their key in the door, walk in, and just start living in that space. From a sponsorship standpoint and from, I guess, how you're helping to either prepare the athlete or prepare the brand, like what does turnkey mean in the space that you're using it?
Yeah, I love that question. And turnkey is literally the same way a house would use it, right? Like this brand has this vision, this brand has this product, and most times they're trying to find someone to fit their messaging, right? And find it to make that. And they already have a script that they want the athlete to go about. And as you can see, it's easy to tell when someone's reading the script and it's inauthentic. And we make it turnkey to where we have this knowledge. We survey our athletes as well, so it's a real community standpoint. And we survey the athletes on various different things. We know how many moms are in our community. We know how many coffee drinkers are in our community. We know how many, women tore their ACL in our community. So these are type of things we have at our disposal when talking to brands and saying, hey, we have this athlete that does XYZ. She lives in Florida and she loves your product and she endorses it probably naturally and can speak to it from a level that you may have not even thought of. All of those things already in place into a brand's marketing calendar, which they just needed an athlete with the story, makes it so much more turnkey compared to the opposite of trying to coach someone into a story and fit into that storyline.
When you're working with these athletes, knowing that, are you is there a form of, like, coaching them up on personal branding and, "Hey, here's how you can kind of expand your platform, expand your reach so that you essentially, like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready," right? Like, from a brand's perspective.
Yeah, and we have a whole and that's not even my side of my department. We have a whole different side of the company, which is even cool to me. Some of them are actually consisted of professional athletes, right? We have a world champion water skier. We have a three-time gold medalist Paralympian volleyballer. We have a WNBA player on our staff who's also part of the Parity community. So all of the resources and things that we're hearing from brands, that we're hearing to the industry, we also push out to our athletes. We also want them to be as authentic content creators, and I use that word in quotation because anyone's a content creator if it's their own stuff, but we want them to be as authentic and real as possible. So try to do as less coaching, but just more helpful tips, right? And how to maximize, right? How to maximize your strengths, how to maximize your notoriety right now, and how to make the most money. Because that's the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Let's get these women paid.
Are there specific brands that you seek out? I know we touched on that a little bit, I guess, at the beginning, but are there, brands you see, I guess, that make more sense than others, or is it just kinda open, to anything?
I mean, there's obvious ones that we all see, right? Like there's the Nikes, the game
Yeah.
we see on TVs, the Coca-Colas that we all would love to work with, right? Especially in a sales or B2B marketing role. But there'll always be there. But there's millions. Like I said, the challenger brands are really good. Consumer products are also cool, but technology companies looking to reach diverse audiences. Like we work with Microsoft, and Microsoft launches their Copilot AI tool, which kind of helps, and we help them kind of illustrate that with using it against Olympians and Paralympians. So using tech to fit an athlete's lifestyle or financial services, right? They're really huge right now in sports, but in women's sports, they're continuing to gain more ground. So from companies like Gamebridge, Delaware Life, to Morgan Stanley, to RBC. So from annuities to 401ks to wealth management, which is all very pertinent in women's sports, right? Their or sport life expectancy is very different from a male when you throw in childbirth, when you throw
Mm.
in just natural things that women deal with that men don't. when to retire, when don't to retire, when to come back out of retirement are totally different conversations. Money is always going to be top of line, and especially in what we do with Parity, money is always going to be top. So financial services, and then even just brands you probably never even thought of, right? Like we worked with the Minnesota Pork Board. We also worked with like Hormel on some food things. They used two Olympians. Their names were Cook and Bacon. They were two Olympic divers. So it really ranges on what the appetite is. So you can think of your household brands to brands you're not even thinking of. But if you have an appetite for actually investing in women athletes and you love women's sports, Parity can definitely help.
I feel inclined to say that I'm a huge supporter of a last name food brand partnership as somebody whose last name is Onion. Like, I love it. The cook and bacon's amazing. It's amazing.
That's one of the cooler ones to work on, but it just goes to the cultural relevance, right? Like we were able to help this brand tap into this. Not only it was around the Olympics, which is a whole different hurdle, but just being able to activate it in time. And then the cool success story from that was given how the Olympics were in Paris, they were the first Olympians to actually win medals because diving
Mm,
was the first one of the first events. So yeah, all cool success stories, but it was all just from an affinity and a natural appetite to invest in women.
I love it. I love it. What is your as we think about kind of this the business of women's sports where it is right now, what's your assessment on kind of the current state of sponsorship, marketing dollars for women's sports?
Um, I mean, I think it's going in the direction it should be. I mean, it's there's always room for growth, right? Even in men's sports, it's booming, but there's room for growth.
Right.
And but I definitely think the trajectory is there. The one thing I love is that the conversation's there, right? Just being someone that can like just understand, I guess, a underrepresented community. Just having that conversation there is always the first step. The fact we're having there's podcasts that exist, there's networks that are popping up, Oprah's involved, like you know what I mean?
Right.
There's people involved, and that conversation is going around to where this isn't going to be that um it's not just like a cultural little thing. It's not a moment. It's a movement. It's continuing to go forward. And so one thing that's very exciting is seeing that and seeing allies get involved, men with big dollars, Steph Curry's of the world, Chris Paul's, people like that really getting involved. Kevin Durant, just getting involved in the women's sports space because it's needed, right? Like it can't be done by itself. The one thing I will say that's just, keen to watch out to is just the growth, the hyper growth, right? With the hyper growth comes so many different things. I think some leagues are experiencing it. Some are more probably equipped for it, like WNBA and WSL, but they're experiencing crazy growths, crazy evaluations that just, sometimes just have to be careful that that growth doesn't exceed the product in the moment. But I'm very confident that the game, the excitement of the game is already there. It's been there. One of the things that like we surveyed for just fans was that the biggest thing that came out of that survey was that there isn't a difference between women's sports fans and men's sports fans. They're just
Mm,
sports fans, right? Like, I was talking to a buddy the other day, and I was just like, man, I love YouTube TV, especially like when March Madness came on, because like I didn't have to choose, right? Like some of the men's games were bad, some of the women's games were good, but I could have four screens up and just watch basketball because I just love
mhm.
basketball. And so I think that is also like just a great sign to see is that people are catching on. It's just like sports is sports. I just love competition, man. It could be whoever's racing, whoever's playing against each other. We just love competition.
How much do you think I've read something a while ago that was talking about this kind of, similarities, right? The 99,
Hmm.
US women's national team and how they kinda came onto the scene, and that was 26 years ago, and people are like, "Ah, women's sports have arrived," and then that kind of excitement ended, the World Cup or the whatever it was they were competing in at the time, wrapped up, the tour they did around the States, and then those names to me still relevant as a female athlete, but I think for the most part, if you would throw out like a Brandy Chastain or a Mia Hamm or a Julie Foudy, the average quote unquote American sports fan might not know those names. But how much, I guess, do you feel that the accessibility to streaming services like YouTube TV, the accessibility of and pervasiveness really of social media and like athletes' abilities to connect, how much do you feel like what's happening now is driven by those things?
I'm no expert, but I feel like it's all driven by that. I'm in the same boat, right? Like I'm a Carolina guy. I love Mia Hamm. I know all about Mia Hamm. I felt like that was the thing. I can like I don't know if there's a new wave of people into like the WNBA, but like I've been on the WNBA. I remember when Lisa Leslie first dunked.
Yes.
That was a historical moment, right? And like you would have thought the WNBA would arrive then when they had women dunking, and women have been dunking since then. But I think to your part, social media, right? Like I think it's also a new fandom and a new way to engage. I also think it's people are moving away from team loyalty and are starting to move towards fan loyalty. And
Hmm.
you'll follow a player. I think to use a male as an example, I think LeBron has also projected that trend, right? You probably were a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, but you'd probably say you're a Miami Heat fan and you're also a Lakers fan, right? Just because you fell in love with that one person. I think the same thing has happened for women's sports fans. I would say if Iowa fans are now Indiana Fever fans, and if Caitlin Clark went somewhere else, most of those fans would be whatever team they're on because you get an in close. And I think we probably would have did the same thing if we could see, Mia Hamm's day to day, right? If I could see a little bit more behind the scenes of Candace Parker when she was a high school phenom, I think that would have happened. But I think social media and then the media rights, which are big, these media rights, these Peacock streaming channel deals, these Apple TV deals with soccer, these YouTube TV deals with March Madness are huge. And that's the way that people are digesting sports media nowadays. And so I think it has definitely helped, and that's why I don't think this is just another moment, right? I don't think it's just another moment in women's sports history because they've had plenty of moments. But I think
Right.
it's more of the movement, and there's enough things in place to move forward. New leagues to keep engagement going. WNBA season ended, and then I had Unrivaled to look forward to. Right? Oh, yeah, I just think it's a different time, and there's tools in place and people way above my pay grade are much smarter now to take advantage of that. And I think the women are taking advantage of that, right? I think they are learning from the lessons. I think one great women's sports ambassador who has been a part of some of the things we work with is like Billie Jean King.
Mhm.
Someone you think still wouldn't be out there like pushing the message, but I think she's someone that's seen the vision. She put in all the work back then, has seen the vision, and is not complaining that she didn't reap the benefits and is still reaping those and still benefiting
Yeah.
from it. And I think that generation has helped. Like I think they helped, and they're still in the media today, help talking about it. Lisa Leslie and people like that. So
I want to touch on some of the leagues, like the new leagues that have popped up, because it's not just for women's basketball. So with Unrivaled, which is a new kind of league for women's basketball, the 3-on-3, right? The had a ton of media coverage. Like so impressed with how they rolled that stuff out, and it was fun to watch. Excited, like the whole thing was super cool. With that happening on the volleyball side of things, we've got, I think there are two active leagues in the States right now. A third was announced. I feel like there was a fourth that I saw the other day. Like um, we have right now the uh Pro Federation and the
yeah,
PVF, I think it is Pro Volleyball Federation, and then Love,
yep.
which is the acronym LOVB, and then the MLV, Major League Volleyball, was announced earlier this year, which is supposed to start, I think, in January of 26. And then you've got, Athletes Unlimited, you've got yeah, some of these other softball leagues, the NWSL, all these things. Do you have, I guess, thoughts on how flooded the market feels at times right now with some of these new, and like to your point, there's been such an appetite for it, but there's such a flood also happening right now. What does like I think generally people are feeling maybe all of these things are not sustainable long term. What does that look like? Do they start to combine? I think there's also folks who are looking at things like USFL and XFL and all of those attempted the Arena Football League, some of those pieces that folks just never really latched onto. I guess I just would be curious to know your thoughts in general of the market and how flooded it is right now with leagues. And then, if you have a crystal ball, what does the future look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. It's like, yeah, I think it is possibly saturated, but then there's like, I don't know, there's enough money to really go around, right? I think the structure could possibly be better. I do see overlap in some leagues, right? Uh, which can be to that UFL, XFL issue, which they'll end up combining, or one's going to not do so well in competing. I think what Unrivaled did and some of these other ones are sustainable to me because
Mm,
it's an off-season play and it's also a different format. I think when you can try to keep the same format and you push against a league that already has it, as you can like just using the UFL, the XFL, doesn't it's not gonna you need to switch up something different to get people either more excited or those sponsorship dollars really to start flowing. And so I do think there is the issue for that. Honestly, I think with volleyball, it's interesting just because of there isn't one like, you know, major NFL,
yeah.
NBA of that right now. So I think it's also okay for them to kind of balance out and see which one actually has more of the breadth. I think there's also room for which I see popping up is like these new leagues, but they're tournaments.
Mm,
Which to me has a perfect place to play because it's not the same competing offer, but it plays outside of it. And there's everything like that from Unrivaled. AU does some of those things. Like there's TST, there's a soccer tournament. They also have like the basketball tournament. Golf is starting to do that now, right? Right. Tiger Woods has his golf league, and they
mm,
do it in a tournament style, right? And they try to make it more entertainment. And I think that's the same thing that benefited for Unrivaled. It's like cool, it is basketball, but it's entertainment at the same time because of the format. And I like that idea, and I think there's always going to be always going to be room for innovation. Innovation is going to be tough. I think innovation always going to be room for it in any league and any sport. Duplication is going to be hard, and I think they'll kind of figure it out. I think even like soccer's figuring that out right now with like the USL, NWSL, overseas scheduling, FIFA. You know, us in America, we're kind of behind the ball when it comes to football.
right.
I think our leagues are figuring that out as well too, but I think they're all in great places. And um, the one good sign to that is where like leads me to just be like, shut up because there's room. Is
Mm,
because of the media rights, right? Like when you see NBA sign this $1 billion deal with ABC to do the things, and there's still way much more money left on the table, and also the sponsorship media dollars that they are spending in both of these sports are still very bad in regards to the disparity of them. So,
interesting. Gosh, I could talk about that stuff all day. So going back to kind of again the business of women's sports right now and sponsorship, look into that. What do you think that brands are getting right? What do you think that brands are getting wrong when it comes to either working with the leagues, these new women's leagues, or with athletes individually?
cool. And like I said, just my word, but I think one thing they're getting wrong is like treating women's sports as like a corporate responsibility rather
Mm,
than marketing. Um, just in this climate, I think that's a bad idea to do. And two, just in general, I don't think when it comes to any type of ROI, it's hard to prove that when you present it as charity. And just being in just business acumen, you learn that as you go. And sports is no different, right? Presented as a business. That's why sports business is huge. There's so much money funneling through it, from food and beverage to apparel to media rights to you name it, action figures. But it's a business and it's not a charity. So I think framing women's sports just as you would frame men's sports, asterisk, because it's a little different in the way you would, but framing it as big business is where I think they should be, and where they're going wrong is treating it as a corporate responsibility. Another is that we see is focusing solely on follower count with these athletes.
mm,
um it's not an apples to apple comparison. Like you can't compare an NFL, even a third string NFL player probably has more Instagram followers because he's a male athlete than an elite woman athlete, depending on the platform, right?
mhm.
There's a small sector of these women athletes that have a share of those, Alona, Caitlin, some of these people, but majority of them, their Instagram follower count do not equal their accolades. where sometimes it may in regards to a male thing. And so that is a very hard line to cross sometimes. And I think brands just equate it and they're just like, ah, no, she only has, 80,000 followers, but she's a three-time gold medalist going for a fourth, and she's a mom of two kids. And like the stories write themselves, but they're caught on that 80,000 when they want to work with someone with 6 million followers, right?
Yeah.
All for a different price point. That's the other one. And the third thing where I think they're just getting wrong is um yeah, just viewing, I guess like I said it already, but just viewing men's sports as through a women's sports lens, right? Like, and that's even for me to say, like, as a guy, I have to take myself out of that when viewing it, as well as I think in some of these rooms or where these decisions are being made. And that's across all things. I think diversity is important when you're making these decisions, right? If you're sponsoring a women's sports team and you don't have at least a woman in that conversation, then it, what are you doing? And so I think those are three wrong things. But there's so many things that brands are getting right and why I think we're in this crazy, crazy hyper growth of women's sports. One, I think a lot of brands are doing authentic year-round investment versus 1 month campaigns. So they're really putting their money where their mouth is. Like I've seen Mass Mutual do something really cool with a cohort of women athletes and kind of trailing this into their life, and that's a very long campaign that they're doing. Companies like Ally are sponsoring year round rather than just doing little one offs to just kind of stay relevant and say like, hey, we did drop a coin here. So these meaningful relationships are starting to grow more and more and more, which are really cool. And then also there are a lot of brands that are kind of letting these athletes lead the storytelling, and you can kind of see it. One great storyteller, brand ambassador like Flaw J for LSU.
Mm.
You can see brands just being stepping back and letting her creativity show, right? And what that is doing is just benefiting them because guess what? The people buying your product don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from her. They want to hear from these athletes. They want to hear
Right.
from these athletes. So I think brands that get it are being like, ah. And then the last thing, which is easy for me to say because I'm not a budget holder, but taking a risk. It's really what it is, and you see a lot of brands doing that and taking that leap of faith and going on standing on their morals and what they believe in, right? And believing in a certain athlete or believing in women's sports or believing in these things. Big companies, CarMax, right? They're just being like, cool, we make a stance, we sponsor the WNBA and the NWSL, and we're gonna renew that year over year. And so yeah, just not afraid to make that stance no matter the climate or no matter what's going on. So think those are 3 things brands are getting right.
I want to come back to one of the things you talked about brands getting wrong and getting caught up in that follower count. We so many times, right? You see that I was like, oh, the 6 million followers or the 2 million or 1 million or the 800,000 over the 80,000 or whatever it is. But I think there's data that exists that says some of those folks who do have smaller followings, like we've seen this in college athletics specifically, where the smaller followings are actually the more engaged followers, where the people who are a part of the 2 million are very tertiary, like they're kind of there as tourists. They like that person, but they're not like with that person, like, and I think the folks who have those, whether it's less than 100,000 or whether it's in the 10 to 20,000, those followers are so much more like they're the ones who are leaving the comments, they're the ones who are liking every post, they
Yep.
have the alerts set and all these things because they feel like the athlete is accessible to them, right? Because they were one of the first 10,000 people who started following that athlete. So it would be interesting, I think, to see in kind of this next phase of growth and development as we roll into it for women's sports, to see what it looks like as brands do start to engage with folks who have smaller followings to start off with.
No, you're 100% spot on. It's one of the things that like in that education piece that we talk to people about is like the difference between fans and followers.
Hmm.
Athletes have fans, right? Like, you're the person on your reality show has followers, right? They may follow, but they're fickle. Athletes have fans, and like, yeah, I've been with this person since high school. I knew this person college. Like, I love them because they're from my home state. Like,
Hmm.
they're fans of this person, and if this person promotes a product, more than likely, I'm not going to question it, and I'm going to buy it because I'm not just a follower of this person. I'm a fan, and so that's the difference between like athletes and like influencers, and that's is why they have less. usually follower counts on their Instagrams because people are with them throughout that. And to your part, the engagement rate on smaller follower counts are way greater. Like imagine having to reply back to 6 million people,
Right.
400,000, right? Like, and so even from a brand's perspective, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? If you have someone with 80,000 followers and they're actually really engaged at at an 8, 9% engagement rate, that's, let's even say 10 for number six, because I'm not a mathematician, but like, let's say that's 8,000 new customers that you can guarantee to get compared to someone with like, 2 million followers and they have like half a percent of engagement rate.
Right.
Like, you're not getting anywhere with that, and who knows where that half percent the age demographic is and any of those other things. The number speaks for itself, but, like, that engagement rate of a smaller that means the story is there, that means the people are more loyal, and that means that you, by integrating with this athlete, can now integrate into an household seamlessly without really having to push a message, without having to do anything. And I think that is really the key message that brands are like latching onto, or that we're trying to get them to understand. And then the cool part is like you don't have to break the bank.
Right.
So this isn't something you're breaking the bank with, right? But it has the potential to be so, so, so beneficial from internal and external standpoint.
Okay, so I got one more real question and then we'll kind of shift into our wrap up here. But on this note, what role do fans and consumers, like from a parity perspective, what role do y'all feel that fans and consumers play in helping to push for more equitable sponsorship opportunities for women athletes?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I don't know. I think it's the same thing that like you can ask out of any fan and consumer is to ask more out of the brand, right? Or ask more out of your local legislative. Just you as the person, as the end result of all of this, right? You're the person that's going to spend your hard-earned dollars on this game or this product. And I would say the same thing that these fans demand out of the team, right? When I go to, you see my Giants helmet. When I go to a Giants game and we suck and I'm out here yelling at the coach and like why we aren't good, I should do this. I expect not yelling at a brand, but I expect that same energy when I'm spending my hard-earned money to go to a store, right? And so I have to say is like fans can do the same thing when they're directing their dollars because the power is there. None of this matters if consumers are like, I'm not spending over here. Then none of that
Right.
matters. Brands will be like, what? Why? Why aren't you spending over there? Oh, because we don't invest in women athletes or women's sports. Okay, like, it's that simple. Bottom line affects everything, right? And, we can turn on the news and see that bottom line affects a lot of things. So I think as a fan, of an athlete, you have that position, that cool position, not only to be very loyal to them, but you can help out an athlete, little do you know it, right? Whether it is just liking more of their stuff, engaging on some of their comments, reposting, telling your friends to follow this women athlete, especially in women's sports. So
Hmm. I love it. I love it. Okay. Uh, I guess any final thoughts on the future of women's sports, whether it's marketing, sponsorships, any of that stuff before we shift into the last question here?
um no, I mean the my perspective on women's sports is I'm just excited to see that next phase, right? Like I joined Parity in 24. That was like the to me it was like a hyper growth phase of women's sports. It was a lot of educating, but also awareness. This year has been a little less on the educating, much more on the awareness, much more on just like boom, things are happening. Super excited to see how next year goes with the Winter Olympics 2026 in the beginning. I think the Paris Olympics helped. That was the first Olympics to have 50-50 split in regards to men's and women. So I think those like landmarks and conversations in LA 2028 will be big as well. Um, Continue to grow. I'm just interested to see how the big conglomerates of the world act and move, how these meteorites shift. Because I think at the end of the day, that's when things will start trickle down. And then the other note I'll leave is that I think brands like it's a good thing to invest in leagues and sports. But I also think there is a reality to let, as you just said, those numbers, like that money doesn't go to these athletes. So it's one thing to make an impact, then there's another thing to actually make that direct impact to an athlete. You can sponsor a team and do these things, and that money trickles through 1,000 different hands before it goes to the athlete that everyone is coming to even see. So I think that's also something, just to leave in mind of anyone from a brand.
Okay, if you could get some hang time with any woman in sports, who would it be and why?
Ugh, I thought about this question. I know you posed it to me. It's like too many, but I have to name one. I am a basketball person, so it would probably have to be Maya Moore.
Okay.
Yeah, so Maya Moore for me would be one because she's like I thought she's the go. It's like a go asterisk because she left too early. I've seen her documentaries, I've seen all the things. Her story is absolutely amazing. And like, I would love to have that conversation and just be like, you were at the top of it all and you did something so selfless. I don't know. I just want to hear more. Like that's someone that just feels like, yeah, man, like the world doesn't deserve someone to do something like that. Like she gave up a lot to do something, for someone that she loved and something that she thought. And I think that's a cool story. And then I think now she just got some of that stuff retired and she's getting some of those flowers. And I just hope that people remember, not for, because there's enough to go around what she did at UConn and in Minnesota, but just her as a person. So if I could have some hang time, I think Maya Moore would be one of those people.
Yeah, we've been in a basketball, trend for folks who have been named. Maya Moore, that is a great one. She's one who I like her story, to your point, is yeah, it's kind of insane how little of it has been told, and there's stuff that's out there, I think, right now too, talking about next phase of women's sports. I'm excited with her, induction recently into the Naismith Hall of Fame with Sue Bird, and I I'm excited to see what comes of that for her and to see in what other ways can we shine light on what she elected to do because it's so remarkable and so uncommon,
Yeah.
particularly for athletes who are at their prime, as you mentioned. So yeah, it's great.
And I'll throw a ringer. And the only person I thought was second, the only second person, she's a current athlete. Sydney McLaughlin Laroni.
Okay.
The only reason because I ran track, and
Mhm.
I just have to ask, like, yo, like, what is your work like? That is one woman I like. I feel like if she switches from the 400 hurdles and runs the 400, like they'll have to shrine her somewhere. Like Michael Phelps, watch out, she will be the greatest Olympian. Like to have.
Right.
So yeah, that's another current athlete. Yeah,
That's a good one.
yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, where can listeners go to learn more about Parity?
Yeah. Please go to www.paritynow.co. Also sign up for our newsletter. We push out tons of different things. We have, maybe different webinars, different newsletters, but we have lots of different blogs, also athlete POV blogs. So definitely check out the site, engage. Also find us on LinkedIn at Parity as well.
Awesome. Well, Malik, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. It's always good to connect and catch up. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. This has been awesome. Love what you're doing. Keep it up, and yeah, look forward to talking soon.
I appreciate it. All right. For the listener, you can follow us. If you're not already, you should be. It's at HangTimePod P0D. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, we did also recently join TikTok, so find us there as well. And until next time, we'll see you then. Couple weeks.